Welcome to the Low and Slow podcast.
We're your girls, Crystal and Laken. If you press play today, trust, you made the right decision.
And know whenever you're listening to this, it's exactly the right time.
We invite you to pull up a seat to the conversation, get curious about your current perspective,
and lean in for the opportunity to see yourself in another woman's story.
We created That Girl Magic because we've been where you are.
Here, the talk is real and the breath is steady.
Let's get into your next mindset shift. Okay, I have something to say, and I know it's going to hit everyone in this room, everyone listening. Every person that I've ever attracted in one way or the other was trying to tell me I wasn't good enough. Like every single one. And for years, I thought this was about them. Like maybe they were mean, or they were emotionally unavailable, or maybe they were inconsistent. And eventually I had to ask myself something that was so uncomfortable. And it was, what is it about me that didn't have value for myself in those relationships? Like that I was willing to allow myself to be treated a specific way.
Yeah, okay. So welcome to the Low and Slow podcast. We're going to get into it today. Walk me through that, because I think a lot of women hear that a lot, that, you know, the saying of it's not about them, it's about you. And immediately that will trigger a defensiveness, right? Mm-hmm. Like, no, he really was a bad partner. She really was a bad friend. And how does that correlate? What would you say to that?
Yeah. And here's the thing. They may have been, right? I'm not saying their behavior was okay. What I'm saying is anytime you think it's just about the other person, there's a mirror there, right? And there's something that's being reflected back to you, right? That person really, when you zoom out and you're not in the situation, because it's hard to do that while you're in it, right? It's showing you that that person showed up to really show you who you were in that dynamic, right? Every bad relationship or dynamic that I've ever been in, honestly, was one of my best teachers. Because if you're with someone who's not loving you the way you want to be loved, or maybe they're not seeing you the way that you want to be seen, that is not on them. That's on you, right? And I get it. I know how that lands. When that landed with me, it was like, oh, that doesn't feel so good to say, right? But it's not an insult here. It's actually the only part of the whole situation that you have any power over, because you can only control yourself.
Yeah, I want to explain this a little bit, because I don't want it to just sound like, oh, you know, like this is a nice reframe that we have, because this does speak to what we've talked about projections before in a previous episode, right? And this is about a loss of control. Like there's exactly two things in any relationship dynamic. It's like what the other person does and what you allow or ask for and tolerate, right? And you have zero authority over the first one, because we can't control other people. You cannot manage someone else's capacity or their wounds or their willingness to show up for you. And you can hope and you can ask, but you could also leave, right? But you can't install their behavior for them. You can't force anything. And so what you do have authority over, and what this is worth reflecting on, is the second one, what you're willing to accept. This goes to what we speak about a lot with boundaries, right? Like what you speak up about, what you are deciding that you're going to walk away from. And that matters a lot, because that's the only lever that's actually connected to anything. Like pulling on their behavior is pulling on a lever that isn't attached to any mechanism. Pulling on your own tolerance, though, is the only lever in that room, or that you have access to, that's actually going to move something. So when you say like, oh, that's on you, you know, you're not saying that you caused the behavior, but it's that the only one in the story that has an actual lever to pull is you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like that, right? That's on you. I say it in that way because sometimes I know for myself, and I'll speak for myself, when you are triggered, something activates in you, right? Let me take a look at that deeper, right? Let me actually look what's in the mirror and see the part I played in this, not for their behavior, but why I even tolerated it in the first place, right? Or why I was available to it. Because the whole thing that we're talking about today is that there's this narrative that someone else caused a crack, in your story, in your, in your dynamic. And it's like, no, there's something there. The crack possibly already existed because maybe that was something you thought of yourself, right? Or maybe that was something that you had a wound in previously. And so then when this happens, right, like relationships are really like teachers because they're mirrors, right? And so what about something in this other person, whether it be their behavior or whether it be how they saw you, is like reflecting something back to you where you could say, I'm not going to take ownership of this person's behavior, but what is this trying to teach me? What can I learn about me in this?
Yeah, and it's worth identifying that pattern because I'm sure everybody's felt like this at some point in their life where it's like, oh, different faces, same lesson kind of thing, where this feels familiar. This has come up before, like a new job, a new city, a new guy, a new friend group, whatever it is. And somehow I'm finding myself in a very similar dynamic, whether that's a fight or feelings hurt or feeling not being chosen, whatever it is. Like there's a commonality almost always across the board.
Yeah. And because it's actually not that it's like a new person, like it's showing up in the form of a new person, like a new being, right? But it's actually like the same lesson wearing a different costume, right? And the same lesson wearing a different set of pants. Like they changed the shirt, they added different accessories, and it's like, wait a second, it's you again. And if that keeps happening, right? It's like, and I want to like put context too of like, when I say that, I think it has to be triggering to get the attention of like, wait a second. Like we all have a victim mentality. And I think it's so easy to see things through our lens. But when you can zoom out, like when you can know what's yours, know what's not yours, and then say, well, wait a second, this pattern keeps showing up. And so what about in this dynamic do I have to look at? And that's what I can take ownership of, right? That's what I can look back and say, oh, each of these experiences, like, what was the line through here that maybe while I was in it, I didn't see? So the reason it keeps showing up is because God, universe, the higher power you believe in, whatever you want to call it, right, is basically asking you how, and it doesn't mean the dynamic has to be bad, right? But like how many times does this have to keep happening before you finally see it? Right. And that's not something that is a punishment, right? That's part of the lesson. It's persistence. It is the universe giving you, like, I use this as an example in human design all the time. When you are your not self and yourself, like your most self, you will learn through your not self how to actually be your most authentic self. And so it's through all of the lessons that are probably not in alignment, not serving you, right? Are the ones where you're staying in these survival identities where that is the lesson. Can we learn it there and know that love or connection or really intimacy, right? Depth, it refuses you to let you keep sleepwalking through the same thing. So it has to make you feel so uncomfortable for you to say, oh, this is something for me to look at. Like, oh, I keep experiencing this, right? And this is very different than like being a victim in a situation, right? That is completely different than what we're talking about today, but it is something to look at when this is a repeated pattern.
Yeah, it's just like anything else. We're going to lean into what's familiar, and it's going to take a certain level of pain in order to require a change or to get us to seek out a change because we don't like change. And is like the actual mechanism behind why it's the same lesson is the pattern recognition, and your nervous system is doing it consistently whether you're aware of it or not. So it's like you have this template we've talked about before, like we have a certain set of software, right, that doesn't necessarily get updated. It's built early and it's out of what feels like love or what felt like attention or what felt like being chosen in an environment that you actually grew up in. And then your nervous system doesn't go looking for good partners, it goes looking for familiar ones. And it's like familiar and safe are not the same thing, but your body treats them like they are because what is familiar is what it knows how to survive. It's always going to seek out that familiar pattern. So you walk into a new room or a new relationship or a new friend group, and your system is running a background scan for anyone who matches an old template, right? We talked about this a little bit in the mother wound episode also. It's looking for that familiar feeling of like inconsistency or condition conditional approval or having to earn something. And it's not that it just so happens that you keep finding the same people over and over again. It's like your nervous system is specifically wired to recognize these people and recognize these behavior dynamics, or these relationship dynamics. And it can be, like we said, different people, but you find yourself in the same situation. And that's why, moving or changing cities or changing friend groups doesn't necessarily change the pattern. Like, you are bringing the same radar to a different environment.
Well, here's the thing too, is in putting yourself around, right? If your nervous system is scanning for those things, right, it's going to choose what's familiar, but it's also why putting yourself in places that are different, right? You're not the same, like not people who are just like you, right? It allows you to be put in a different environment where you can then say like it's not something your nervous system is choosing, it's something you're putting to see like, oh, like let me explore this, right? If it showed up with these pair of pants and now I'm in a completely different friend group, right? Or a completely different dynamic where it's like each version of ourself, we're getting, I would like to think, people wanting to grow and evolve, right? Like we're all wanting to be the next best version of ourselves. So in doing that, it's as you are meeting those parts of yourself, allowing what comes up in the mirror to not be from a previous version of you that you no longer are, right? And I think that when you can take a look at maybe the line through where they could be showing up in different dynamics, but that you actually give yourself the opportunity to say, okay, well, here's something that's familiar. Like here's something that I've seen before, even though it's coming through a different form. Like, why is this so familiar to me? Even if it's with a completely different person, even if it's with a completely different area. I want anyone listening to actually sit with this and not just listen to us today, right? I want you to think lately a lot with clients or just in different dynamics, right? We just went through, yesterday was a full moon in Aquarius, right? And, I want you to think of a relationship that has been sitting heavy on you. It doesn't have to be romantic. It could be a friend, a boss, your mom, your coworker, whatever. And I don't want you to think about what they did in the dynamic. I want you to think about what you feel when you are around them, right? Because this is something that is, I think we want to think our way through all these situations, but like we've said before, like this is something that is a feeling. If the nervous system is wired to look for these things, we have to be willing to pick up what the nervous system is calling us on, which is the feelings, which is the signals.
Yeah. So it's like, invisible or not enough, or maybe too much, or anxious, or it could be like grounded and settled and calm or energetic. Like those are all options for what could come up.
Yeah. And when you sit with that, like whatever came up, can you just hold on to that, right? There's a reason why people say, do you notice how, like, if you don't feel good after hanging out with certain people, maybe those are not your people, right? And it's like they say that so that you can sit with, okay, well, why do I feel this way? And is it that it's the people, or is it that's something within me, right? So that's the actual conversation today about sitting with those feelings and navigating. Is this something that is just familiar to me that is maybe being triggered or activated? Or is this something that is really showing me like there's the difference of like, oh, this is not for me, and maybe I'm just choosing this out of a familiar pattern?
Yeah, I want you to talk more about the reference to the mirror, right? We reference the mirror all the time, whether that's us being a mirror for clients when we're in coaching sessions, or for being a mirror for each other in day-to-day life. Like, talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah. So the mirror, right? This episode, right? The crack in the mirror, right? The other person didn't cause this crack. They didn't grab a hammer and go to the mirror where you're on the other side and bash it, right? No, they honestly just applied enough pressure sometimes for you to finally see it. We are all kind of blind to the cracks in our own mirror. Why? Because we've been staring at them for a long time, right? And so the woman or the man or the partner or whatever who blames someone else for breaking something in her mirror or breaking her down, right? Is actually angry at the wrong thing, right? She's mad at the mirror for showing her something that maybe she wasn't ready to see yet, or maybe that she didn't want to see, right? Because the mirror didn't create the reflection there to her. That reflection was always there. It just held it up long enough for her to actually take a look at it. And I think the mirror analogy is really powerful, especially with women, because women are expanders for each other. And so if there's always a mirrored dynamic happening between individuals, between people, right, beings, can, as quick as we are willing to say the other person, are we willing to see maybe some of the things that are coming up from that other person that we are not liking, that we are judging, that we are like thinking that are not in alignment, and really be able to look at, well, what does that mean for myself? What does that look like in me? Right. And can I be willing to ask that question? Because when I do that, it's easier for you to determine, like, when we talk about, is this mine or is this isn't mine, or if this isn't mine, when those things come up, like, you're not, so the saying of, like, you're pointing the finger, but there's three pointing back at you. If you never take a look at yourself of why you even have an issue with these things with that person in the first place, you're probably 9 times out of 10 going to see that you also have those things within yourself, right? And if that's a mirrored experience that's happening, they're just the external, mirrored version of ourselves. Like, we're all one
Like
consciousness.
representation.
Right. And I think, like, so often, because these things are buried way, 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 like limiting beliefs, right? Like, not only just like the deep stories, but these deep core wounds that majority of women have of, I'm not good enough, or like, I'm a failure, or like, what are some of the other ones? Like, just like deep, deep things where it's like, that's why those things get triggered by other people, because they already exist within yourself first. If that's coming out from some other person, right, I think it's something that at the end it's worth looking at, so that you're not just upset with this other person for it, but that you could also see where it's like, oh, if this is what's being mirrored back to me, like, where's that present in myself? I ask myself that a lot, and I know that not everyone does that, but I think it gives me the opportunity to have deeper understanding of why that even exists in the other person in the first place, right? Like, to me, that is the first thing that offers some repair, because it's like, this isn't showing up in that person out of nowhere. And if this isn't something that is mine specifically, like, it allows me to have more compassion for what's happening in the other person.
Yeah. And so if you're like in these loops that keep occurring, even in different dynamics or different environments, like there's a reason why the crack is invisible to you in the first place, right? Like, we are not good at seeing our own blind spots. That's what makes it a blind spot. And a lot of times you need that pressure from an external source to be able to reveal where that structure is weak for you. So a mirror sitting flat on a table doesn't show you anything, right? It has to be angled. It has to be visible to you or held up in front of you. And that's literally what another person does. Like, they're not diagnosing you. They're just standing in the position where the crack becomes visible from where you're sitting at that time, that angle that you're looking at the scenario with at that time, which means you can actually predict what will show up in your relationships if you know where your own cracks are. And it doesn't mean that, it's always going to repeat itself no matter what. But if you know what angle to look at it from, then you can be open to alternative perspectives.
Yeah. And I want to touch on something that you said there of, like, you can predict, right? A lot of times that prediction comes from fears, right? Which is why in relationship, if we can be vulnerable enough to even say it's not about not acknowledging what we're fearful of, but being aware, like you said, aware of the crack, aware of the wound, aware of the limiting belief, aware of the fear, because speaking that I'm so fearful of something, that is the prediction that probably 9 times out of 10 is going to happen, right? And I think in a relationship, if we were to, like, we're on this screen right now, if we were to just see whoever is across from us as a mirror, why are we against that person, right? There's a thing that is staring right back at us. I think it would I think for protection reasons, for like guardedness, right? For safety, we want to be like this, right? But if we were to realize that it's like, oh, they're actually just an extension of us, and whatever's present here, it's like the mirror on the other side allows you to know that you're not alone in it, that you do have someone that you can talk about these things, you can work through these things with, you can not just be fearful of the thing, but actually have a real life external example of how to navigate the fear that's internally without like projecting or predicting it, and like all this is stuff that we normally just keep in, right? So then when that happens like that, we're not surprised, right? Or we're not
Yeah.
taken off guard because we've already predicted it to protect ourselves.
Yeah, and when something shows up that you don't like, or when the crack becomes really visible to you, it's so much easier to stay mad at the other person than to sit with what was revealed in that
Mhm.
perspective or in that reflection.
Yeah, because being mad at them keeps you safe, right? Or being frustrated with them, or being like feeling sad with them, and then not ever saying anything about it, right? Like it keeps your story simple, right? Because it's their fault, which means then you don't have to change anything, right? But if you
Mhm.
can admit that maybe something that was there, something that they did, right? Something that they like, not so much the behavior, but something that you felt from something they did, right? That revealed that the crack was already there. And then you have to be the one to admit that you're the only one that whose job is to heal it, right? We're all grown out here. It's not anyone else's job
Mhm.
to take responsibility for how you are feeling. Nobody's coming to do that part for you. And I think we get kind of lost. Like, we want someone to consider our feelings, yes. But like, if we are not willing to even stare at our feelings and we just keep wanting to project them back and forth, then we're not getting anywhere. And I know that feeling like, hey, nobody's coming to do this shit for you, that can feel terrifying, but it is both terrifying and honestly the most liberating and freeing thing I've ever done, because the second I stopped needing someone to apologize for confirming what I already believed about myself, I took my power back. Right? Like, I'm the one that gets to change
Yeah.
how I feel about myself. And at the end of the day, I think so often we are wanting to just be around people who make us feel a specific way. And that's why I was saying of like being around people who are different, or being around people who don't agree with you, or being around, like, it allows you to reconfirm what you actually believe about yourself. Or maybe it's not a bad thing to be triggered or activated in a way where you can take a look in the mirror.
Yeah, and there's a reason why anger is the easiest go-to, right? It's like anger is an outward facing emotion. So it gives you a target or a direction somewhere to put that anger to put the energy towards something that isn't yourself. Like grief and shame are inward facing. So there is no target. It's just this shitty feeling of sitting in your own self, right? Your own like struggle with what you're lacking. So the nervous system, if given the choice, is going to reach for anger every time, because at least angry feels like, oh, I can do something with it, right? And the problem is that anger at someone else, it has a shelf life. Like it runs out the moment that they're either gone, or the moment that you've had the heated conversation or the fight, or the moment that you got the apology that you were looking for, even if you like wanted to continue after that. And then you're standing there with nothing feeling truly resolved, because the anger was never actually pointed at the real thing. The grief underneath it doesn't have that shelf life. It just waits for you to come back to it. That's why we talk about grief being cyclical, or like waves almost. Like
Mhm.
that's the reason why this keeps recurring. It's the real thing never gets addressed, and then only the decoy or like the surface level stuff does.
Yeah. And a lot of times, why is that, right? It's because on either side of that mirror is their availability to be vulnerable, to share, right? To show up and allow yourself to be fully witnessed, seen, felt, all the things. And maybe that looks messy. Maybe that doesn't look perfect. Maybe that, is a wave of emotions. Maybe it's a long conversation, but it's one that also, if you do that, removes, because like underneath anger, another form of that is like resentment, right? When things aren't talked about, when things aren't expressed or held in a way. I want you guys to, if you have the person that you like popped into your mind today, right? I want you to sit with that and notice what comes up for you. The names of that person may change, but the patterns do not until you do, until you make a change, until you see something from that dynamic. Like, how can I look at any relationship in my life and what was the lesson for me in that? Right? Regardless of what that person did or how it ended or the dynamic, right? Like that's why, like, even after divorce, right? There's a lot that's there to unpack. Can we unpack all the feelings and stuff first, which even allow us to uncover what's underneath here, that at the end of the day, once you peel back some of those layers, like once I take that other person out of it, there's something there for me to sit with, right? And anytime that something didn't work for you, outside of the other person, there's an opportunity to see where, oh, this was familiar. Oh, I could have done different here. Or like, it's just giving yourself the space to be able to look at that, to be able to hold up your own mirror or look in your own mirror.
Yeah, it's not necessarily about finding better people. It's about making different people feel familiar too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, healing here is like, I think when we talk about healing, we want other people to be a part of our journey with that. And like the meaning of making other people feel familiar is like, peace used to feel boring to me. I'm like, what else is here, right? Or when someone's like the nice guy, right? It used to be boring, and like chaos felt like chemistry. There was a spark. There was like little zhuzh there, right? And now I'm like, no, peace feels like home, and chaos feels exhausting. Like it feels exhausting before it even gets going. And so, you can look back at different dynamics of a consistency, right? Maybe that used to feel a little bit suspicious, like, oh, it's too good to be true. What's the catch? And now it's like inconsistency is the thing that feels unsafe, right? Because I've looked at that, it's like, no, I'm worthy of someone being consistent and showing up. And this is what I mean of like outside of other people, right? Like if you were to look at what about yourself was accepting that behavior, right? Because you did. And I think that's the piece that people don't want to admit. Your nervous system is just recalibrating what familiar even means, right? So I think when people say like, oh, that, their version of what love was, well, that's what you thought it was at that point in time, right? But that doesn't mean that's what that is moving forward. And I think some of the things that are attached to how someone would define love or a soulmate or this or that, like, is because of that was just familiar. And like the same bait doesn't work anymore either, right? Like the same person who would have hooked you 2 years ago just doesn't land in the same way. And that's why we find ourselves in these cyclical patterns, trying to replay out the same dynamic with a different outcome. But it's like there's these things that are so familiar until we're willing to take a look at what's on either side of the mirror.
Yeah, it's like your nervous system is actually updating its baseline for what normal means based on the new evidence you collect along the way. So for years, if the baseline is calibrated around inconsistency, consistency is going to register as something strange because it didn't match the data that your body had collected. So every time you experience real stability and it holds, like nobody pulls away or nothing falls apart, you're not like waiting for that other shoe to drop. You're giving your nervous system a new data point, and enough data points will edit the baseline itself, right? It gets to move that threshold, it gets to move the dial. And that is what recalibration is. That's the reason that the old bait stops working. That's the system that is running on updated information so that you don't continue to fall into these same patterns. That doesn't mean that similar feelings may not come up when you're triggered, but it does mean that you get to grow and change and adapt in the way that you interact in those relationship dynamics.
Yeah. And this is not because you got cold, right? You didn't get cold or your heart's frozen or you're cut off to intimacy or you're cut off to actual connection, right? Because we all want that. Whether you're telling yourself you don't want it or not, we all want that. And it's not because you got cold in that area or frozen over. It's because you actually got clear. You actually got clear in your piece in that and what you wanted from that. And the part that you were playing by being, it takes two. Like they say, oh, it takes two to tango. Yeah, it does. And both people have to be willing to take a look at that. I want you to, as you're listening, as you have that person, like put your hand over your heart for me, take a deep breath at the end of the day. When you find that one person that came up for you, right? Can you put your hands on your body, breathe into your hands? And with the person that came up earlier, like ask yourself a really good question. Like, what part of me has been asking them to heal here? And then what would it look like if I became the one who gave that to myself instead? Right? Because when that relationship's long over, long gone, they're not going to come back and do that work for you. Can you sit with that?
Right. So if someone's listening to this right now and they're really feeling that, and maybe they're in a relationship or a friendship dynamic or, one of these patterns that we've talked about, what would you say to her?
I would say healing was never about learning to avoid the hard or the difficult people or the difficult relationships. It's about becoming the version of yourself, the woman who no longer abandons herself around them, who actually takes a look at herself, every version of herself, the version of herself who was willing to stay, the version of herself who was willing to repair, the version of herself who decides, hey, that's not working for me anymore. And even if we're still grieving parts of ourselves in that, deciding that she's going to be the one to start to do her own healing in that, and not be blind to some of the cracks that maybe already existed.
Yeah, because they're already there.
Yeah, they're already there. They just wore a different pair of pants and a different costume to show you, right? It's like Halloween. Like, what were you this relationship? Oh, you were a cat here, and then next year you were the Hulk. Like they keep showing up, but you gotta peel them off to see what's underneath there.
Yeah. So basically, if you heard this and it made you think of someone specific while you were doing those exercises, don't send it to them. Send it to you first. Re-listen to it, and then maybe send it to them.
Yeah, this is an invitation to spiral into blaming yourself for the dynamic that inevitably happened, right? This is an invitation to take your power back in that dynamic, right? I think so often we will tell ourselves, I did this, or I should have done different, or it's like all the negative side of it, but it's like, can I just ask myself why, instead of why does this keep happening to me? Ask myself, okay, well, what is this trying to teach me? What's the lesson in this for me, right? And if I can even map out times where this has been a similar lesson, like sitting down with yourself for that is worth looking at.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
So if you know anybody that would benefit from this info, please share the episode. As always, please like and subscribe at all the places. Rate and review if you feel so kind. We appreciate it so very much. Hit us with those 5 stars. Anything else?
Yeah, I don't think so. They don't introduce you to your wounds, y'all. They don't introduce your wounds. They introduce you to the wounds. So we all got to look at our own wounds before we're talking about someone else's. You know what I'm saying? Okay. This was good. I liked it. I hope you guys loved the hot open. Sometimes we just got to sprinkle one of those in there for you. We are coming up to on almost 50 episodes, guys. So we really appreciate all the staying to the end of the episode where Laken's like, I don't want to text, I don't want to comment, I want a review.
Yeah, I want a review.
We really appreciate
so if you told me that you love the podcast, tell me in the reviews.
Right. Love it. Well, we're happy to have you as always, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.
See you next time.